Hey, what's up guys? Tyler here with Secure Team. We have some amazing new moon footage to show you guys today of what amounts to be some extremely large pillars sitting on the edge of a crater. Now this was found on Google Earth, which you can download. It's a free program that allows you to scour the moon, Mars, Earth, and see up-close satellite imagery. Now this was originally posted by the YouTube channel Marcelo Irazusta. And I apologize if I'm not saying your name correctly. However, I am diligently working on my pronunciation. So we'll go ahead and zoom in here, and we will put the coordinates to this down in the video description, so you guys can check this out yourself. And what we found here are these massive 3 pillars. There's actually 5 altogether, and there's some other very mysterious things happening in this image. And be sure that you watch this entire video, and by the end of it, if you still do not believe that the moon is not inhabited by these massive artificial structures, then you will likely never be convinced, because we've documented this on the channel, and we're going to show you some other amazing images captured proving that these towers do exist and have been in some cases airbrushed out by NASA. So as you're seeing here, we have this crater, and as you're seeing, we have these 3 large pillars, perfectly spaced apart, sitting on the rim of this crater. Now the sun is shining down onto the moon from the bottom of the screen. That's where it's coming from, the bottom left. And you can actually see the 3 shadows of these 3 objects being cast on the top inside rim of the crater that is lit by the sun. And each shadow perfectly correlates in size and shape to these 3 large pillars. Now, we've gone ahead and measured the size of these 3 pillars, and they come to almost 200 feet or more in length. So these things are standing over 200 feet off the moon's surface. And then you'll notice that there are 2 more pillars to the outside of this crater, here and here. Now, some other interesting things that we've discovered around this area are some craters that seem to have these 3 perfectly aligned structures. They could possibly be more pillars, but nonetheless objects sitting on the rims of these craters. As you're seeing in this crater directly to the left, we have 3 more objects sitting directly on the edge. And another very interesting thing we found is when we move to the right here, we found another crater with this 300-foot long cylinder or cigar-shaped object sitting at the rim. I mean, look at this thing. And we actually have evidence of these cylindrical shaped objects that NASA have airbrushed out. Only they didn't airbrush it enough, and you can actually see in some images we're going to show you in just a second, part of this structure that they tried to blur out in a very famous photo sticking out of the edge of the blur mark, and you can actually make it out. And someone has actually made their own rendition of what they think the object looks like that has been blurred out. So we will go ahead and show you that in just a minute, so be sure to stay tuned. So again, we have these craters and we have these towers, and we know for a fact that these towers exist on the moon. And this is just one case, albeit it's a new find. And yeah, this definitely defeats any skepticism that this is any type of glitch in the Google Moon software, due to the fact that you can see the shadows of these towers casting on the rim of the crater here. You don't have shadows with glitches. Now, as to the proof that there are towering objects on the moon of various sizes, we are going to show you a set of images proving that these structures do exist. The first image you're seeing here from the Zond program, where the Russians sent a probe to the moon to snap some pictures, and basically they snapped a picture of the moon at just the perfect angle to where they could see one of these massive towers sticking up over the moon's edge, as you're seeing here. And this is from the Zond 3 mission. And as we zoom in, you'll see this miles-long tower sticking up over the moon that they would not have been able to catch had they, again, not been at the perfect angle to take this photo. Then we move on to a lunar orbiter image from 1967. Very famous image showing what have been known as the tower and the shard. And as you're seeing here, the shard is this object here, standing high above the ground, casting a shadow down below. And then behind it, we have what is known as the tower, which has been brought out in this close-up image to the left, again, towering up over the moon, having sort of a large circular domed top to it. Now, another devastating footage is this here, what has been known as the castle. Now, this is one of my favorite images showing these structures on the moon, because look at this thing. This is straight out of, an old storybook where you would think of a castle with these massive pillars at the bottom, a few more pillars at the top, and then one final long pillar at the very top. Speaking of massive objects raising up off the moon, we have another image here taken during the Apollo mission showing this massive object up here in the right-hand corner coming up sideways up off the moon, with one end still touching the moon and the other end high up in the sky, miles off the ground. Now, if you remember earlier, we were talking about NASA blurring these massive towers and structures out of existence. One of those images you're seeing here, with these obvious airbrush blurring marks, blurring these towers out. Now, some of these are very long, high towers, others are square-shaped buildings. And the image that we referenced to earlier, where they accidentally actually left part of the structure that they were blurring hanging out of the side, is this image here. And this has been an extremely well-known and analyzed by hundreds, possibly thousands of people, where we have this structure sitting partially in the edge of a crater, which is obviously been blurred out by NASA. And if you look just to the right, where the blurring stops, you can actually see part of this structure sticking out. Now here is an artist rendition of possibly what this structure is that's sitting here behind this large, obvious blur mark. Now, obviously, this is just an opinion, and people who have analyzed this image in the past have been able to bring out a lot of detail, and it does look like some sort of large machine. So you be the judge, but do not ever forget that NASA collectively attempted to blur out most of these objects before, I think, finally giving up and just degrading the entire photos and reducing the resolution to the point where they didn't need to blur anything out. And now we'll move on to some other image showing possible bases. Here's an Apollo 10 image here where they were orbiting the moon, and they snapped a picture of this very artificial looking base-like structure, casting this long shadow on the moon's surface. Here is the close-up of that. We have what looks like a circular wall and some zigzagging pattern. I mean, it definitely looks artificial. And another well-known photo taken here, which you can also find on Google Moon, is of this massive structure that was kind of dug into the side of a crater, taken in a lunar orbiter image during the 60s. It almost looks sort of like a wristwatch, and it's been called the wristwatch anomaly, where we have these, what looks like the band of a wristwatch coming up, digging down into the moon's surface, and then we see this large cigar-shaped opening here in the middle. And this may possibly be an entrance for these saucer-shaped objects that we have seen numerous times flying to and from the moon. Now here is another very interesting find of an Apollo image taken on the surface of the moon that was supposedly of basically nothing. It was a whited, it was a white image, completely washed out by the sun, or at least that's what NASA said about this particular frame, that it was washed out by the sun, so you couldn't make out any detail. However, when the contrast was enhanced, we began to see this massive pyramid-shaped structure sitting in the background to the right, as well as a long rectangular building or structure of some kind sitting to the left of this pyramid, as you're seeing here. And, back then, NASA didn't count on us having programs that would allow us to increase the gamma or the contrast or the brightness. So they left the image in there and didn't think anyone would be the wiser. And as you're seeing in this image where we have this tall rectangular structure, these have been brought out in numerous other Apollo images from the surface of the moon, as we're showing you here, and that you've seen before on this channel. To the left side, we have the regular Apollo photo. You can see the astronaut standing in the middle. And to the right, we have the contrast and brightness enhanced version showing this massive rectangular structure sitting in the background, towering up high above the moon, basically just sitting there in the darkness, hiding in plain sight. And this very well could be the same object from this image here with the pyramid. And how could we not mention this photograph that we featured in past videos that was snapped in the offices of NASA, where they had some photos sitting on their desk of the moon, close-up high-resolution images of the moon. And when we zoomed in on this photograph that's underneath this NASA employee's arm, we see this massive square structure sitting on the moon. I mean, it's plain as day. And we've done a couple of videos talking about this photo, and you can actually find the original photo zoomed out, and we've actually mentioned the names of the employees in it. It's an official NASA photograph. And here are some other very anomalous structures we found on the moon, rectangular in nature, some very odd surface features. And not only do we have structures, but we have objects moving on the moon, creating trails, as you are seeing here. What are thought to be massive mining vehicles, possibly mining helium-3, that have been shown leaving these massive trails on the moon. Not only that, but going down into very deep craters and coming back up and out of the craters. And, you know, as we've said before, these structures are not exclusive to just the moon. We've shown you numerous images of these anomalies on Mars images. Especially domes. There seems to be a lot of domes and or monolith type towering structures on Mars. Here's an image here showing one of these massive black domes sitting on the edge of a cliff on Mars, and you can actually see the sunlight glinting off of the top of this. It looks almost like black glass, and it's an extremely eerie image taken from Mars. Here's another image from Mars of another one of these domes taken by the Mars rover, of, again, a domed shaped structure with what look like black circular windows or entrances wrapping around the bottom, as well as another structure to the right with what looks like a pipe of some sort zigzagging down this ridge here. And again, lastly, is one of the very famous monoliths found on Mars, where we have the zoomed out version to the left, and we zoom in each frame moving to the right, so you can see a close-up of this tall, square monolith, this object, just sitting in the middle of nowhere on Mars, casting this large rectangular shadow. And yeah, again, the moon is a very mysterious place, and we certainly know for a fact that there are ruins on the moon, but also we've seen movements there that would indicate that there's activity happening to this day as we speak. So when you look up at the moon at night, there may just be something looking directly back at you, and that's no joke. So again, back to this original footage, it's an amazing new find. You can get the coordinates down below. Let me know what you guys think. We have these 3 pillars sitting on the edge of the crater, casting these shadows, and then we have this rectangular object to the right, sitting in another crater, and it's just one more piece of evidence that allows us the confidence to state that there is something going on the moon. So let me know what you guys think. Check it out for yourself. Big thanks to the original source who discovered this, and yeah, tell me your thoughts on it, and if you have your own finds similar to this, be sure to email me. All of my contact info is down in the video description. So check it out, follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and stay tuned because we've got a lot more coming. Stay safe, guys.